Hey everybody, Jeff Manchester here. A lot of people always ask me what my go-to VST is for piano, for strings, for solo strings, for phrase libraries, for percussions, all the rest of it. So I'm making this video to sort of explain the 5 sort of core tools that I find myself coming back to over and over and over in these categories. So keys, so piano, solo strings, a symphony, phrase libraries, and percussion. So I'm making this video because we have the holiday season approaching, all kinds of companies competing in a very crowded sort of composer product space. Everyone and their cousin, it seems, is coming out with like an oboe VST. So this should help you sort of narrow down the field, make some choices. And these are products that I've been using for a really long time. And I've spent a lot of money on VSTs and plugins. So hopefully this will sort of help you make some decisions going forward. I should say this is not like a budget composer video. Some of these things are a little bit expensive, but I think the juice is worth the squeeze, and I'm going to explain why. So let's get started with keys. So when it comes to a piano, I like to have one beautiful piano. I don't like to have so many options. For example, Complete by Native Instruments, they've got like the Maverick and the Giant and the Gentleman and the Creepy Uncle. No, but if there was a piano called the Creepy Uncle, I would buy it. But I don't know. There's too much choice. It gets kind of overwhelming for me. I like to have one incredible piano, and for me, my go-to piano is the Hammersmith by Sonic Couture. And if you don't know anything about Sonic Couture, I've reviewed their products on my channel before. They're an incredible sample library company out of England, and you go to their website, they're sampling stuff, instruments you can't even pronounce. So, they're sort of on the cutting edge, and they took a traditional approach to the Hammersmith in that it's sort of the first old world instrument they've sampled in a long time. They've been famous for sampling like Imogen Heap's voice, and she's, whirling around Twizzlers and stuff in Box of Tricks. Not Twizzlers, but anyway. So this is a sort of classical instrument. So I got very excited about this, and go to the website, listen to the demos. They have an intro and a pro version. The pro version, I mean, it's just got some fancy binaural sort of Neumann heads and stuff, and fun stuff for like audio engineers to sort of drool over. But the intro is really all you need, sort of the basic one. Get under the hood, some incredible presets. You can play around with the mic placement. It's just some of the cleanest, most beautiful sampling I've ever heard. And it's a piano that I can make sound like any other piano, because you can get really under the hood and sort of tinker and make it sound sort of whatever the client wants it to sound like. So I think the Hammersmith is my favorite piano. Honorable mentions would be maybe Spectrasonic's Keyscape that just came out. The reason I'm not really endorsing that is it's like $500, which is, it's fine if you want to charge that, but do you really need like 50 pianos? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a pro keyboard player. I can't make anyone cry with a piano. I just need one, and I find that Spectrasonic's great company, don't get me wrong, but there's no student discounts. They make it impossible for you to switch your licenses around. Let's say if you get bored with one of their products, it's just a very sort of closed environment. And for me, it's really sort of not a product I'm interested in as a composer. I want to work with a whole bunch of different stuff. I'm not a very good keyboard player, so I don't need 60, 70 pianos at my disposal. And if you're a complete owner with Native Instruments, which most of you guys are, you've got great versions of all the stuff that Spectrasonics just modeled in Keyscape. So you've already got those sort of at your fingertips. So anyway, but to recap, check out the Hammersmith by Sonic Couture. I'm going to leave everything I'm talking about. By the way, I'm going to leave all the stuff in the notes for the show page. So just check the description. They have a great student discount, and they have sales, I think 40% off or maybe 50% off every holiday season. So we're winding up to that, okay? Next, you're going to need some kind of symphony, virtual plugin. You're going to need something that can emulate an orchestra. And I would say stay away from the very seductive and tempting kind of epic orchestral libraries like Albion 1 from Spitfire, or the Arc 1, I think, and that comes from like the Berlin brass people. Not that those aren't bad or anything, but they have a very specific sort of boxed in sound. And sometimes when you're composing for a client, they might want something that has the sort of presence of an orchestra but isn't very harsh. And if you're sort of tied down to some of the bigger, more powerful sample libraries, you can't really make those guys sound very gentle. But if you get Some of the more gentle orchestral libraries with distortion and doubling, you can make those guys sound really big and epic. So my recommendation for a sort of all-in-one symphonic sort of library would be Chamber Strings by Spitfire. They just updated. They used to be Sable Volumes 1, 2, and 3 or something like that. They've just updated and sort of amalgamated all these products, and they have a new GUI, and they actually have a new legato, playable legato sort of patch system, some new scripting from them. It's beautiful. There's some percussion in there too. I know it sounds small because it's chamber, but trust me, it has a Hollywood sound. It's beautiful. You double it up. It is expensive though, by the way. I think it's like €5-something, but they do offer a student discount, and they're just an incredible company to sort of get into bed with. They have so many amazing products. I use them all the time. I do have Albion 1. I've got a lot of their percussion stuff. They have an amazing reputation. They're sort of like an all-powerful, proud British company. They use British session players and British instruments in these beautiful British rooms with these British mics. And anyway, so they're just one of those companies you really want to get to know. And again, student discounts. In fact, they just had 40% off for students in the month of September. So that's when I took advantage of a couple of sales. But I've tried a lot of string libraries. I guess an honorable mention would be Native Instruments Symphony series or Symphonic series. I was a bit turned off because they didn't include their strings with the Complete 11 update. They have some sort of pared down, stripped out versions of those. So that was a bit disappointing. I said, that's okay. I'm already with Spitfire and I love what they do. There are a lot of string libraries out there. I encourage you guys to try them all and see if they're for you. Again, there's a lot of companies, without naming names because I don't want to play that game. There's a lot of companies that are like, oh, string libraries are sexy. Let's kind of put something together and put a lot of money and marketing behind it. And you get the end result and it's just a little bit underwhelming. So I'd say Spitfire sort of have a reputation. They've been around now. They're coming up on about 10 years. I think they started in 2007 for building really beautiful, expensive, but totally worth it. The price is commensurate with the sound quality you're getting. So chamber strings, that would be my orchestra pick. If you've got one sample library for orchestras to take with you into the desert, it would have to be chamber strings. Okay? Solo strings. What I mean by this is sometimes you just need one sort of standout instrument to guide the pack, to guide the cue, to sit in front of the orchestra or the cue that you're sort of composing. And there's a lot of options for solo strings, but I'm so in love with this one company called Veer Harmonic, I think, and they make something called the Bohemian Violin, which is an extremely beautiful and playable kind of legato. The scripting is amazing from these guys. Legato violin, really playable violin. It's just so raw and it's got a character and a tone to it. And they've just updated the series, and now they have a cello, which just came out. They also have introduction pricing. They've got a great student discount. I've dealt with them before. They're great for support. Get back to you right away. Really small company. So they're just sort of taking off with this sort of, I forget the name of it, but it's like a solo series. So expect, I'm assuming, I don't want to put words in the company's mouth, but some brass stuff, maybe some woodwind stuff. But oh my God, the violin is better than anything I've ever played with before. So Bohemian Violin by Veer Harmonic, that would be my solo sort of recommendation. You get that. And by the way, if you get it now, they're updating with new expansions and new scripts and new sort of phrases and stuff like that and patches. Every quarter, I think. If you get it now, you get all the bonus stuff that they're coming out with every 3 months for free. And if you were to wait a little while, they'll have the new patches out with the next version, and it'll cost a little bit more. So if you get sort of in on the ground floor, you're paying less in the long run. So Bohemian Violin, incredible. All right, let me think. Where are we now? We did keys, we did symphony, we did solo. Okay, phrase libraries. A lot of people don't know what phrase libraries are. They're a relatively new thing. A lot of stuff that you have in your sample libraries, for example, action strings from Native Instruments would be technically classified as a sort of phrase library. You basically have loops, essentially, that's what they are, of scripted sort of, you know, melody passes, whether it's with strings or woodwinds or whatever. People think that phrase libraries are kind of cheating. They're not. Phrase libraries are extremely useful on a couple of levels. The first is, Believe me, we'll get to my recommendation in a second, but I love to talk. So the first is a phrase library will sort of help you understand how an instrument should sound. So it gives you kind of template for how, let's say, the dynamics and the glissando and the velocity and the expression and the vibrato of a string section should sound, so that you have that as a template and you can sort of build your own compositions and melodies based on what the phrase library is telling you. And also, the second point is that phrase libraries just sort of, they add warmth to an existing composition. They can sort of hang out in the background. You've got these beautiful sort of, I don't know, these amazing sort of up and down patches and ostinatos and all the rest of it. There's a lot of companies making phrase libraries right now, but I think the only one you need to spend money on are the phrase libraries coming from Sonokinetic. And the flagship phrase library, in my opinion, that they do is called Minimal. I love it. It's the first one they did, and they've updated. Now they have Grosso, they have Sotto, they have Capriccio, which I own as well, and they're coming out with Maximo, which I'm going to review on the channel. I'm not sure if this video will come up before my review of that, but they record beautiful, beautiful stuff, and I've been so impressed with the playability and the usability of all their phrase-based libraries. I should say they make sample-based stuff as well. They just came out with a huge sort of competitor to, I think, Native Instruments Symphony series. They came out with a great woodwind sort of bundle. I don't have that, but anyway, I've heard it's incredible. So bottom line is Minimal. Go check it out. It's sort of like a Steve Reich, Philip Glass sort of pulsating ostinato based string library, but it's phrases, and you'll see what I mean when you get in there. And they just updated it, so now it's like Minimal 2.0. So they've got more features and functions, and they've got some cool sample offset stuff. Just go to the website, again in the show notes, check out Sonokinetic's Minimal, and maybe you'll fall in love with the rest of the libraries that they do, like I did. So get to know phrase libraries, learn from them, and incorporate them into your mixes. And I think Minimal is an amazing gateway drug to the rest of Sonokinetic's work. So lastly, percussion. You're going to need something. And here's where I've been kind of dissing them a little bit, but Native Instruments Complete 11 or 10 or 9, I think, will all have damage and action strikes. And even though these are classified as kind of phrase-based libraries, if you actually buy them and dig into them, you can get to the individual patches and you can play those patches. For example, in action strikes, you can pull out the taiko drums and you've got all the phrases, but you also have a tab for individual patches, and you can play those on your push controller, on your keyboard, and you can create your own passages, and you can throw those passages either through a bunch of amazing effects that if you use Kontakt, which you should, Kontakt has, or throw them through Soundtoy stuff, really mangle and distort and get them crazy. It's just, for the value of it, you're getting you're getting beautiful, amazingly recorded, either huge thunderous stuff or like really subtle stuff from action strikes, and some really incredible distorted stuff from damage, which is made by Heaviosity. And they make some great, for my honorable mention for percussion, Heaviosity makes some really nice drum packs, which you should totally check out. They do metal and wood, and another one that I'm forgetting now. But anyway, if you're a complete owner and you're a complete selector, you're thinking about diving in, those two sort of percussion libraries might be all you need for a long time. The value is tremendous. So I should also say that if you go Complete 11, you buy the whole package, you get the Kontakt factory library, and within that is some of the best orchestral percussion I've ever heard in my life. Some of the most beautiful Celeste I've ever heard is sampled by Native Instruments. It's in that library tab. You've got like timpani and just amazing stuff. It's kind of overlooked because that's kind of like the Jurassic Park of sample libraries now. They've got like a lot of really old stuff in the factory library. It hasn't really been updated. It's sort of like legacy products, but please don't overlook the orchestral percussion and all the options that are in there if you're a complete owner. So anyway, hopefully that sort of that sums it up for you. So keys, Hammersmith, symphony, chamber strings. It's expensive, but it's worth it. Solo stuff, Veer Harmonic, really bet on them as a horse going forward. They're going to come out with some great stuff for the Bohemian series. Phrase, Sonokinetic and Minimal, and finally percussion, Complete. bang for your buck. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, blah, blah, blah. Thanks for stopping by.